Hello dear viewers, my name is Dr. John Mohmad Pandit, Assistant Professor at the Department of English, Institute of Aeronautical Engineering, Hyderabad. Today in this video lecture, I will deliberate on the topic that is outcome-based education, or commonly known as OBE. OBE, its introduction and significance. Now, the first thing. Before we start, let me tell you about the background of this OBE, outcome-based education. This term OBE, it was first coined by a famous psychologist, William G. Sparry, in the year 1988. That's why he is often said as father of outcome-based education. Yes, it was William Sparry who first coined this term in the year 1988. And with the coinage of this term, this outcome-based education, it really revolutionized our whole system of education. Because unlike the traditional way of teaching learning process, the OBE model focuses on, for example, mapping. It focuses on measuring and achieving predetermined educational goals. Now here it's important. OBE actually it focuses on mapping of the course. It focuses on the measuring, that means the regular evaluation of the students, and at the end it focuses on achieving predetermined educational goals. That means goals were set before the actual commencement of the education. That's why this type of model, it really revolutionized our education system. Here, the educational goals are not limited to academics, but also includes attributes like here, problem analysis and solving. This type of model, that means the outcome-based education, it helps in problem analysis and solving. And the second one is ability to simplify complex learning methods. Here in this system or in this model, students are instructed to simplify the complex learning processes or methods. And the third one is individual and teamwork. This is again one of the attributes of this outcome-based education. It teaches or it develops a sense of teamwork among different members of any educational process. That's why here this education system is very important, in a sense that it develops a sense of teamwork among the different members of any educational process. And the next one is the professionalism. Professionalism, it's another attribute of OBE, or outcome-based education. And the next one is the communication skills. And this is another attribute of this OBE. And the last one, that is the lifelong learning. Here, we are concerned with the lifelong learning, the learning that has the lasting influence on the student's psyche or the mind. That's why it's very important. Now this OBE framework, it works in coordination with Bloom's taxonomy framework to fill up such learning gaps by covering the given educational areas. That means this OB, it collates with the Bloom's taxonomy. That's what it, for example, the imitates, or you can say the follows the same pattern, the same procedure, or the same parameters. Like here, we have the first one, that's knowledge or remembering. This is the first thing, or the first step of this Bloom's taxonomy, which collates with outcome-based education. And the second one is the comprehension or the understanding. This is the second stage of teaching learning process. Here the students try to comprehend, they try to understand the content. And the next one is the application or applying. And this understanding, it's followed by applying. The students apply the accumulated knowledge or the knowledge which previously they have understood. And the next one is the analysis. After applying, we do the analysis, we do the different comparisons, we check the references, inferences, and the next one is the synthesis, that is the evaluating. Here, we do the evaluation, and the final and the last stage is the creating. Therefore, this our OB, it collates with the Bloom's taxonomy framework. And this OB system, it's a fruitful way of teaching learning process. Here we find least wastage of time and energy. That's why it's more preferable than the traditional way of teaching. Here we will see these things. Outcome-based education versus the traditional education. Now look at the difference. That's why this outcome-based education, or OB, it's preferable nowadays. Why? The first one is outcome-based education. It focuses on the practical skills, competencies, and the real-world applications. Now this OB, it focuses on the practical skills. What skills any students have learned in the course of teaching learning process. Here, the teachers, they try to vet the different competencies among the students. Or you can say that this outcome-based education, it lays stress on the real-world applications. On the other hand, if you look at the traditional way of learning or the traditional way of the teaching, it emphasizes the transfer of content knowledge. In the traditional way of teaching, we simply laid stress on the one thing, that's the transfer of education or the knowledge or the content from one generation to another generation. And the second one is tends to engage students more actively in their learning process. This outcome-based education is completely student-centric education. Here the teachers or the peers, they try to engage students more actively in the learning process. While as in the traditional way of education or the teaching, that relies more on passive learning. In fact, the teacher was the epicenter of this whole process. But here in OB, student is the epicenter. Student is at the pivotal position and everything revolves around the student. That's why we often call it the student-centric education. The next one promotes critical thinking and problem-solving skills. And this OB, it develops critical thinking and problem-solving acumen among the students. That's why here we lay the stress on the practicality of the knowledge. We see the application of the knowledge. We see the outcome. That's why it's called outcome-based education. Here this OB, it promotes critical thinking and problem-solving skills among students, while as the traditional one lean more towards theoretical understanding than the practical application. If you look at the theoretical one, if you look at the traditional one, they lay stress on the theoretical aspect of education. They were much more concerned about the theory. But here, in OB, we see the practicality of the knowledge, or the learned knowledge, or the accumulated knowledge. The next one, it is inherently flexible and adaptable to change in industries and societal needs. And this OB, it's not something that is static. In fact, it is a dynamic process. Here we change when we find there's a need to change. That's why it's something dynamic. It's not stagnant. It's not something static. It's the dynamic. It changes with the passage of time. It changes with the our new requirements, like it is. That's why we call it. It's inherently flexible and adaptable to change in industries and societal needs. If we find that there's a new needs, or there are new needs in the new setups, it changes or it molds according to the industrial needs or the societal needs. That's why we call it, it's flexible, or it's something which can easily be changed. On the other hand, if you look at the traditional education, may emphasize established knowledge rather than current trends. And the traditional way of the teaching, they don't pay stress on the current needs. In fact, they emphasize the established knowledge rather than the current needs. That's why this OB is preferable. That's why the OB has really revolutionized our education system. Now, before we move further, let's see the definition of this OB. Outcome-based education, commonly known as OB, is a student-centric teaching and learning methodology in which the course delivery assessments are planned to achieve stated objectives and outcomes. Now, if you look at the definition, this OB, it's a student-centric teaching and learning method. That means the student is here important. That's why we call it a student-centric. Here the student is at the pivotal position and everything revolves around the student. That's why we call it a student-centric, in which the course delivered. Here the assessments are planned. Here, this is the very, I think the best part of this OB, that here everything is planned. For example, how we are going to deliver the course, how we take different assessments, everything is planned. Why everything is planned? Everything is planned in order to achieve stated objectives and outcomes. Here, prior to the commencement of the education, actual classes, we set our objectives, and then we actually follow those objectives. That's why this type of education, it's objective-oriented education. Here, nothing goes in white. Everything follows to achieve a particular objective. That's why it's important. It focuses on measuring students' performance, that's outcome at different levels. Here it's important because here we measure students' performance at different levels. That's why it's so important. Here we have the regular or the continuous assessments. And the best part of this whole thing is that here we planned everything, be it our delivery of classes, our assessments. We planned everything to achieve stated objectives and outcomes. That is the objective. That means the set objectives and outcomes. And here, at different intervals, we measure students' performance. That's why we call it outcome. That is outcome at different levels. Now the next one. The key features for implementation of outcome-based education system are the number one. Development of a curriculum framework that outlines specific and measurable outcomes. Here, these are the different key features for for implementation of outcome-based education. The first one is the development of curriculum framework that outlines our measurable outcomes. And the next one is instructional methodology to ensure the delivery for the specified outcomes. And the third one is standards-based assessments that determine whether students have achieved the stated standards. Now the next one. Outcome-based education process step by step. How it follows. What are the different procedures? What are the different steps that OB follows? Number one. Here we need to keep it in mind that institution's vision and mission, that's important. Institution need to decide a short-term goals as well as the long-term goals in terms of students' learning outcomes, their personal growth, skill development, and institution's overall performance. Here, every institution, it's prerequisite for every institution to decide the short or to set the short-term goals as well as long-term goals in order to see the students' learning outcome, their personal growth, skill development, and at the end, institution's overall performance. Now, the vision and the mission should be divided as per the department first, so that the higher aim of the entire institution could be achieved within a specified time. Now, look at this. Here, while making this the vision, while preparing the vision and the mission of the institutions, it should follow from the bottom. That means every department in any institutions, they are supposed to prepare their vision and mission. And then this vision and mission, it must collate, it must agree with the vision and the mission of the institutions. That's why we often say that department can formulate its vision and mission, which should align with institute's vision and mission. That means the vision and mission prepared by the department, it should align with the vision and the mission of the institution. Next one. Here the institution can follow the given steps to define their vision and mission department-wise. Number one, how we frame out this vision and mission. The first one is brainstorming sessions with experts and experienced faculty of various departments. Yes, we can set up a new vision and mission when we take some brainstorming sessions in which the experts or the experienced faculty members of different departments come together and discuss things and set a new vision and mission. And the next one, speaking to industry, professionals and alumni batch. Here, while preparing this vision and mission, we can speak to any industrial persons who know the real requirements, who know the field, who have done the field study. They know each and everything. What are the new requirements of the site or the industry for that matter? Or we can, for example, consult our alumni batch because they have a lot of experience. They are the field work experience. They have done the case study. Therefore, they know each and everything we can consult them to so as to know what are the new requirements of our society or for that matter our industrial world. The next one is analyzing the opinions and deciding a solid plan of action. Here we analyze the opinions and then we decide a solid plan of action. And remember, once the vision and mission is clear, institutions need to focus on teaching learning processes that provide world-class education to their students. Therefore, while preparing this, for example, vision and mission, we need to conduct brainstorming sessions in which experts or for that matter the HODs or for that matter the persons of great experience can sit together and frame or give the new ideas or the new suggestions. And the second one is we can consult, for example, industrial professionals or the alumni who have the great experience or who have done the case studies or they have the field experience. We can consult them in order to prepare vision and mission. And this is the very important one. The next one, establishing the program, educational objectives and program outcome. Those are the same important. Program educational objectives, that means POs. Program educational objectives specify the expected outcome of students once they graduate. Mostly the way they conduct their behavior and ethics and excel in their careers. Now this PO. The PO actually it's nothing but the outcome of students once they graduate. Here are the different steps to establish POs for institution. Number one step. What is the first one? Institutions need to consider the vision and mission statement and prepare a plan for action to achieve POs. This is very important. Here the institution need to consider the vision and mission and then accordingly prepare a plan of action to achieve POs. Number second, experienced faculty members and head of the department must create a draft and share it across the departments. And the third step, the points mentioned in the draft and the processes that need to be implemented can be discussed from gaining approval of authorities. And the next fourth step is the final draft prepared after taking the views of everyone in consideration should be presented to the program assessment committee so that they can further forward it to departmental advisory boards. And the fifth step is the departmental advisory boards review the points and send the draft to the board of studies and academic council for final approval. Once the institution gets approval, they need to design a curriculum that can help students grow personally as well as professionally. And the last step is institutions need to analyze the students' learning outcome periodically to identify the learning gaps and rectify them. That means the assessment. We need to conduct the assessment periodically so that we can identify the different learning gaps and rectify them. Here are the examples of POs. Institution may decide to work on the following POs. Number one, professional development of student. And the second PO, it's problem solving skill. And PO third is industry specific skills development. And the number four PO is creativity enhancement. Okay, the next one, establishing the program outcomes, POs. The program outcomes can be defined as the objective achieved at the end of any specialization or the discipline. These attributes are mapped while the student is doing graduation and determined when they get a degree. Now again we have the program outcome. The program outcome can be defined as the objectives achieved at the end of any specialization. And there are the different steps. Here is a step-by-step approach to establish the POs for institution. Number one, what is the first one? The program coordinator consults with the senior faculty members and prepare a draft mentioning the POs. Here the program coordinator, he consults with the senior faculty or the learned ones or the peers and then prepare a draft mentioning the POs. Second step is the program coordinator also speaks to the students that belong to the alumni batch, industry representatives and the various employers to understand the requirements of current industry and trends. On analyzing the views, she edits the draft and sends it to the program assessment committee. Now here our program coordinator, he speaks to different students. In fact, he speaks to alumni batch or he speaks to some industrial experts or the representatives. And then in order to see what are the real requirements or what are the current requirements in our industrial field. And then accordingly, he molds things and he rebuilds things. And after that, he or she edits the drafts and send it to the program assessment committee. Now the setup third is the program assessment committee reviews the draft and send it to the department advisory board to get the final approval from them. And the number fourth one is department advisory board makes the final decision by moderating the draft. Now the outcome-based education, we need to know that the NBA, the National Board of Accreditation, has mentioned 12 graduate attributes in their guidelines to attain the POs successfully. Now the NBA has set certain 12 attributes. And what are these attributes? The first one is the knowledge. And then second one is the problem analysis capability. And the third one is the development and designing of system. And the next one is analyze and solve complex problems, use of the latest tools and devices, society's responsibilities, environment, ethics of individual, teamwork, and individual contribution. And the 10th one is the communication. And the 11th one is the finance and management of project. And the last one is lifelong learning. Now, establishing the course outcome. These course outcomes are the objectives that are achieved at the end of the semester or the year. For instance, if a student is studying a particular course, then the outcomes would be concluded on the basis of the marks or the grades achieved in the theory and the practical lessons. Example of use, for example, the course name, and then we have the course code. And on the successful completion of the English course, for example, the student must be able to achieve. Now see the remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. Again, it collates with the Bloom's taxonomy. Now, the next one that's very important, that's your PO mapping process. Here, the first step is specify and obtain the course outcome. This is the first step in CO PO mapping. And the second step is mapping COs with the POs. That means the course outcomes with the program outcomes. And the next one is, the third step is setting an appropriate weightage for the CO assessment. Here we set an appropriate weightage for CO assessment. Now the fourth one is the measuring the COs through the assessment given to the students. Here we have some assessments, and through assessments we measure students' ability or their performance. And the fifth one is the COs and POs attainment calculations. Now the next one, this benefits of this OB. What are the different benefits of this OBs? And the first one is its clarity. Here the focus of outcome-based education or OB is we demand a clear expectation of of actually we here lay the citrus on what we actually need. That's why the focus on the outcome creates a clear expectation of what need to be accomplished by the end of the course. Here we are the career. We know after the completion of this course, what should be our outcomes. That's why here, before the commencement of this learning, we set our goals, we set our outcomes. That's why in this method, we have the clarity. Here, as I told you, the focus on the outcome creates a clear expectation of what needs to be accomplished by the end of the course. By the end of the course, we know what are our accomplishments, what we need actually. And then second one is the flexibility. With a clear sense of what needs to be accomplished, instructors will be able to structure their lessons around the students' needs. Now here, as I told you, with a clear sense of what needs to be accomplished. Here we know that, for example, we have certain accomplishments and we want to fulfill those. And here, in order to fulfill those, here the instructor, he or she can mold his or her lessons so as to fulfill these demands, so as to fulfill those requirements. The next one is the comparison. OB can be compared across the individual class, batch, program and institution level. And this OB, it can be compared across the individual. That means the class, batch, program and institute level. The next one is the involvement. Here the students are expected to do their own learning. That's very important. Here in this OB system, students, they are encouraged to take their own work, or they are encouraged to solve their own problems. That's why we say students are expected to do their own learning. Increased student involvement allows them to feel responsible for their own learning. Here we make the students more responsible when they take their own learning process in their own hands, or when they actively take part in the education system. And they should learn more through their individual learning. And here we encourage that students should learn more and more through their individual learning, because it has everlasting influence on the psyche or on the mind of a student. That's why in this system we encourage students to take responsibility for their own learning. It was all about OB. Thank you. We will meet in another video with a different topic. Till then, goodbye.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.